Good morning and welcome to TA for Traders. I'm Nigel Croft and it's Monday the 6th of March. In this video we're going to be looking at the European indices. So we're going to be looking at the FTSE, the DAX, the CAC, the FT-MIB in Italy, and then we're going to complete the set of 5 with the eurostoxx 50. So without further ado, let us go on and look at the FTSE. So you can see we had the push up into new high ground last week, and just like the US markets, we are seeing some consolidation now. This consolidation will probably continue. We're not seeing a lot of sellers. As you can see on the candlesticks, the bodies are quite small, although they are all red. Which indicates that we are closing below the open, which is a slight concern in that there's no buyers coming through during the day, but there's not a lot of selling pressure, because you would see longer candlesticks if there was selling pressure. And you can see on the as we go down that there's support here from the 20-day moving average, which is at the 72.89, then the 50-day at 72.27. So there's all supports on the downside. The RSI is indicative of this consolidation. Moved up slightly above that peak, excuse me, which was positive last week, but has now come down. Still positive, still in this kind of uptrend. You could draw here, and still above 50, 62.98. So still positive there. And the MACD as well, still reasonably positive. So if anything, it's a buy and a pullback, the FTSE 100, with the supports coming in at the 20 and 50 day. On the longer term picture, looking quite good on a longer term picture. Again, if there's consolidation, there's good support. RSI showing positive momentum, and MACD still okay. Going up to show you the support resistance levels, so you can get the key levels. I mean, obviously last week's high 73.99.3 is now the resistance, and as I said, you've got the 20-day giving the immediate support at 72.90.1, and then 72.48.9. That's not the 50-day. That was a support level lower down. Moving on to the DAX. Here, similar picture. In fact, all the indices are showing quite a similar picture, and as we saw in the previous video on the US indices, they're all showing a similar picture, and it's all pointing towards a further consolidation. Here in the DAX, there was a non-confirmation on the RSI. A non-confirmation is where the market moves to a peak, but the RSI doesn't move to a peak, and then creates a picture of lower highs. Now on the DAX, we're seeing this going back all the way into December, and on the move last week, again we reached a lower high. So it's starting to indicate there's some slight negative momentum coming into the market. Not quite seeing it on the MACD, which are still moving up, but this RSI is a slight warning. But again, there's good support coming in at the 20-day and then at the 50-day. So you would expect that to be tested. And the longer term picture, here RSI slightly overbought, 70.03. Here actually you did see the 14-week RSI did go to a new peak on the move last week, and hasn't got the same picture as it has on the daily. So slightly better picture coming through on the weekly RSI. Here the MACD still just okay. A down week or two on that would roll that over, so we need to keep an eye on that. But indicative of a market that's going to come back to support, and still is okay. I think next week I might be drawing some trend lines on this chart. Looking at the support resistance levels, we've got the resistance 12.101.2 was the high from last week, 12.38.2 was the high from last year, and then we've got the supports coming in at the 20-day 11836.48, and then the 50-day 11693.7. Moving on to the CAC. Here we had the situation last week where the election, the polls coming out of the election weren't good and the market was underperforming. Well, now it seems to be behaving itself, and if anything looks slightly, has had a better week than the other markets. It's caught up. Unlike the DAX, we did have a new a move higher on the RSI on last week's rise, and the MACD is positive. So if anything, this market looks better than the DAX and the FTSE actually. But if the other markets consolidate, this will consolidate. But likewise, it's got strong support coming in from the 20 and the 50-day moving average. On the weekly chart, excuse me, again, like the DAX, the weekly the 14-week RSI did go to a new high last week, which was positive. MACD, slight warning signs. Be careful if there's a consolidation over a couple of weeks. Just quickly, going on to the support resistances in the CAC, and resistance last week 11, 50, 11, and then above there 14.5, and the 50-day, I haven't put the 20-day on here because they're so close together. On the support you've got 66.78 and then 4804.6. Just quickly going back to this, why I didn't put the 20-day on. You can see the 20-day is very close to the 50-day. Was positive when we had this move up last week, which is another sign where I'm slightly more positive on the CAC than on the other indices. Going on to the MIB, and here we're going into the resistance that we saw at the end of 2016 and then into the end of January. So moving into that resistance, here we've got the 20-day below the 50-day. So on any consolidation, that is going to move up over this week and may even cross towards the end of the week, which would be would give very good support, would be a positive sign. RSI moved up back above 50, which is good, and the MACD just starting to diverge, which is good. Indicative positive momentum coming into this market. Hasn't consolidated like the other markets. If there is any move to the downside, it will find immediate support at that 50-day 19196. That could then give the trampoline effect, and we could then be testing those highs. On the weekly, you can see the market up against this resistance level. It's also the level of the 200-week moving average, although that is moving up, so it would be a positive factor. And you can see that the support on the downside. On the support resistance levels, 19,785.04 is the immediate resistance, followed by 19,810.77, and then the support, as I said, at the 50-day 19,196, and then below there 18,535. Finally, going on to the eurostoxx, and because we're having a bit of a divergence in Europe, as we've seen, the MIB and the CAC have slightly outperformed the DAX. The eurostoxx, which is the 50th biggest stocks in Europe, and so has some of the Italian, has some of the French in there, has actually outperformed the DAX, and looks similar to the CAC and the MIB, and it looks slightly better. Very good move last week, broke the resistance, and the RSI here, potential double top, so be careful about that, especially if we start to see a bit more consolidation. That would be a confirmation of a top, but there's good support on the downside at the 20 and the 50-day, and if anything, that will give the good support, and then a push up, and you would expect to push up into new high ground. MACD is showing positive momentum. On the weekly, you can see that we're probably going to start to test this resistance level, which is from November. That's probably going to cause a bit of consolidation. It's slightly above here, have some consolidation, and then hopefully move on to the highs that we saw back in July last year. And you can see the supports coming in. We've got the 20-week support, and then the 200 and the 50 and the 200 are going to cross over, well, in about a month or two's time. On the support resistance levels on the eurostoxx, as I said, immediate resistance 34.14.9, then followed by the resistance from last November 35.38.6, and then we've got the supports coming in at the 20-day and the 50-day moving average. So that concludes the TA for traders for today on the European indices. Please come back in about half an hour and there'll be a video on the Asian indices. Thank you very much. Please do read the disclaimer. All this information I'm giving is just information and for educational purposes only. Thank you very much.